Ada for cutting off my best friend of 10 years after she told my boyfriend all my secrets? Well, this story is a bit long, but I really need to get it off my chest because I feel torn. I'm caught between feeling hurt and wondering if maybe I've overreacted. I'm 26, and Jess, my best friend, is 27. I've known her for 10 years. We've been through everything together: high school drama, family issues, heartbreaks, everything. I always considered her my person, the one I could trust with anything. I've never had many friends, but she was the closest, the one who was always there. However, things changed recently. 8 months ago, I started dating Ben, my boyfriend, who is 29. Everything was perfect until about 3 months into the relationship, I started noticing Jess acting strangely. She was distant. I could feel that something was off, but every time I asked her about it, she brushed it off as nothing. Then she began making uncomfortable comments about Ben, subtle digs like, "I'm surprised he puts up with you," or "I don't know how he deals with your quirks." At first, I thought it was just jealousy or some weird tension because of my new relationship, but gradually it became more uncomfortable. A few weeks ago, I found out in the worst possible way that Jess had been talking to Ben about very personal details of my life, things I had never shared with anyone else. I'm talking about past relationship traumas, personal insecurities, and family problems. She told him things like my struggles with anxiety, how I feel about my body, and worst of all, mentioned a traumatic event from my childhood that I have never discussed with anyone, not even Ben. I discovered this one night while Ben and I were talking, and he casually brought up things Jess had told him. I was shocked. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I confronted Jess immediately. Her reaction was to shrug and say she thought it would be helpful for Ben to understand me better. I was furious. I told her those were private matters, mine to share, not hers, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she told me I was being irrational and overreacting because everyone talks to their friends about their relationships. I tried explaining that I never wanted those things shared with Ben and that she had crossed a line by discussing my personal struggles without my consent, but she still couldn't understand why I was so upset. To make matters worse, she tried to guilt trip me, saying she was only trying to help Ben understand me better. That was the moment I decided to set a boundary and told her I needed space. Since then, she hasn't stopped texting me, apologizing, and begging for my forgiveness, but the damage is already done. I feel betrayed, and honestly, I don't know how to trust her again. It's not just that she shared my secrets, it's that she doesn't seem to care that she violated my trust. I was always there for her, and now it feels like she's trying to justify her actions instead of taking responsibility. The worst part is that Ben thinks I'm being too harsh and says I should forgive Jess because she was just trying to help. But I feel like I can't just let it go, especially when Jess keeps downplaying what she did. I've been debating whether to completely end the friendship, but I'm not sure if that's too extreme. Am I overreacting? Am I the bad one for wanting to end a 10-year friendship over this? Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone who commented and shared their perspective on my situation. Honestly, I didn't expect to receive so much support, nor did I expect so many people to share similar experiences. Reading your responses made me realize I'm not alone in this, and above all, the importance of setting clear boundaries in any relationship, even with a best friend. After reading your comments, I decided I couldn't let this situation keep consuming me without taking action. I knew that even though I was hurt, I needed to face this directly and talk to Jess face to face. I wanted to explain to her how I felt and why what she did crossed such an important line for me. I also felt that if I didn't do this, I would never find the peace of mind I needed to decide what to do about our friendship. We met at a cafe, a place we used to go to a lot when we were younger. It felt strange seeing her there after everything that had happened, but I tried to stay calm. I started by telling her that I valued our friendship and had always considered her like a sister, but that what she had done deeply hurt me. I explained that the things I shared with her were deeply personal and that I never imagined she would share them with anyone else, not even Ben. What surprised me was her initial reaction. At first, she seemed really uncomfortable, almost as if she didn't know what to say. Then she tried to justify herself again, saying that she didn't mean any harm and thought she was helping. I responded that even if her intentions weren't bad, what really mattered was the impact of her actions. I told her I felt my trust had been betrayed and that it was hard for me to imagine how we could move forward if she didn't understand how serious the situation was. What followed was a pretty tense conversation. Jess admitted that maybe she hadn't thought things through, but she didn't apologize immediately. Instead, she said something like, "I don't understand why you're so upset. I was just trying to be helpful." That was the moment I realized we weren't on the same page. While I was speaking from a place of pain and vulnerability, she still seemed to be trying to downplay what she had done. Finally, after nearly an hour of conversation, Jess apologized, although it felt somewhat forced. She said she was sorry if she had made me feel bad, but I couldn't help noticing that she kept defending her actions as if she was trying to justify the unjustifiable. I told her I appreciated the apology, but that I needed some time and space to process everything. As I left the cafe, I felt strangely relieved, not because we had resolved everything, but because I had finally had the chance to express how I felt without fear of being judged or ignored. However, I can't deny that I still feel confused. Is what Jess said enough? Should I try to rebuild this friendship, or is it time to let it go? For now, I've decided to focus on myself. I want to think things through before making any definitive decisions. Ben has also been more understanding after I explained how I felt when I found out what Jess had told him. He assured me he never wanted me to feel betrayed, but I'm still processing everything that happened. Update 2. After the conversation I had with Jess at the cafe, I spent several days processing what had happened. Honestly, it was harder than I expected. Even though she tried to apologize in person, I didn't feel like she was completely sincere at the time. She seemed more focused on justifying herself than truly understanding the damage she had caused. However, a few days after our talk, I received an email from her that shifted my perspective a bit. The email was long, much longer than I expected, and I admit it took me some time to gather the courage to open it. I knew it could be anything. Another excuse, an attempt at manipulation, or perhaps a genuine apology. When I finally read it, I was surprised by what it said. Jess, in very carefully chosen words, acknowledged that she had crossed a line and that she understood why I felt so hurt. She wrote that she never intended to betray my trust, but now realized that by sharing my secrets with Ben, she had let me down in a way that might be irreparable. She even mentioned that she had been reflecting a lot on how she had handled our friendship in recent months and recognized that her behavior had been selfish. The hardest part to read was when she admitted she had been scared. She said that when I started dating Ben, she felt like our friendship would change forever, and instead of facing that fear in a healthy way, she made impulsive decisions that she now deeply regretted. She admitted that the jokes and hurtful comments about Ben were nothing more than a reflection of her own insecurity. She also explained that talking to him about my personal issues was, in her mind, a way to prove she was still important to me, though I now see it as a twisted way of handling the situation. What struck me was her tone. It was different from how she had sounded during our in-person conversation. This time, she seemed genuinely remorseful. There were no excuses or attempts to downplay what she had done, only acceptance and a sincere desire to repair the damage. She even ended the letter by saying she completely understood if I chose not to forgive her, but wanted me to know how much she valued our friendship. After reading the letter, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was relieved that she finally understood the impact of her actions and apologized properly. On the other hand, I was still grappling with the sense of betrayal and the lingering question of whether I could truly trust her again. I didn't want to make a rushed decision. I knew I needed more time to think, so I decided to keep some distance while I processed everything. Over these 2 weeks, I've been focusing on myself and my relationship with Ben. We've had many conversations about what happened, and although there's still some lingering discomfort, we're working through it together. Ben has been making an effort to be more transparent with me, which I deeply appreciate. He also admitted that, in hindsight, he should have talked to me earlier about the things Jess shared with him. While I don't think he's directly at fault, I believe we've both learned an important lesson about communication in our relationship. As for Jess, I replied to her email, thanking her for her words and acknowledging that I appreciated her honesty. I told her I needed time to process everything and that, while I'm not ready to return to our friendship as it was before, I don't want to close the door completely. She responded by saying she understood and was willing to wait as long as necessary. For now, I'm trying to find a balance between giving her a chance to redeem herself and protecting myself emotionally. I've been reflecting a lot on what forgiveness truly means. Is it enough to say I forgive her if I still feel this hurt? Is it possible to rebuild a friendship after something like this? I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm working on it. Update 3. During this time, I've decided to focus on myself. Honestly, after everything that happened, I felt I needed to reconnect with myself before making any major decisions about my friendship with Jess. I started practicing yoga, something I'd always wanted to do but never found the right moment for. I also got back into reading, which helps me disconnect from the world and find some mental peace. These simple activities have helped me process my emotions and rediscover the version of myself that I had somewhat forgotten. As for my relationship with Ben, we've had many honest conversations about what happened. At first, I was a bit frustrated because he didn't fully understand why I was so hurt by Jess. To him, it seemed like everything boiled down to a misunderstanding. But after several discussions, I think he finally grasped the depth of my pain. I explained that it wasn't just about the secrets Jess shared with him. It was about the fact that she violated my trust in a way I never imagined. Ben has been very understanding since then. He told me that while he initially thought I was being a bit harsh with Jess, he now sees that my reaction is completely justified. He even confessed that he felt uncomfortable when Jess told him some of those things but didn't know how to handle it without causing problems between her and me. I deeply appreciate his honesty and willingness to support me through this. We've agreed to be more open with each other from now on about any uncomfortable situations involving people outside our relationship. As for Jess, we're still keeping some distance. She has sent me a few occasional messages asking how I'm doing, but she has respected my decision to take time to reflect. On her end, it seems she's also working on herself. In one of her messages, she mentioned that she's going to therapy to better understand why she acted the way she did and to work on her own insecurities. That made me feel a bit more at ease because it at least shows she's taking responsibility for her actions and trying to improve. However, despite all this progress, I still have doubts. At times, I wonder if I really want to rebuild this friendship. Can I ever trust Jess again? Can we return to that place where we felt like sisters? Or will there always be this shadow of distrust between us? I know these are questions only time can answer. I've also been reflecting a lot on what forgiveness means. I'm realizing that forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean returning to how things were. Sometimes, forgiving can simply mean letting go of resentment and moving on, even if that involves going separate ways. For now, I'm unsure how this situation will resolve, but I'm taking it one step at a time. Right now, I'm trying to maintain balance. I want to be fair to both Jess and myself. I understand that she's making an effort, but I also know that my emotional well-being is what matters most. I don't want to rush into a decision just because I feel pressured to fix things. This past month has taught me that it's okay to take the time needed to heal and reflect before acting. Thank you again to everyone who has been here with me during this process. Your words and advice have helped me more than I can express. I promise to keep you updated on any developments in this story. I don't know yet how it will all end, but I know I'm in a much better place than I was a month ago, and for me that's already a huge step forward. Update 4, it's been 2 months since all of this began, and I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can see things more clearly. After many weeks of reflection, conversations with Ben, and even some talks with myself, I decided I needed one final conversation with Jess. I couldn't leave this situation unresolved forever, and although I wasn't sure what the outcome would be, I felt I owed it to myself to close this chapter in a more definitive way. I decided to invite her to my home for the conversation. It was a meaningful gesture because I wanted it to happen in a safe space for me, where I could feel comfortable and in control of the situation. Jess agreed immediately, and to be honest, she was visibly nervous when she arrived. I was nervous too, but I tried to stay calm and focus on what I wanted to achieve through this discussion. We started by talking about everything that had happened since our last conversation at the cafe. I told her that I had read and reread her email and that I deeply appreciated her sincerity and the effort she was making to work on herself. I also explained that while I valued our friendship, I was still dealing with the aftermath of her betrayal and couldn't simply forgive and move on as if nothing had happened. I shared my fears, doubts, and the process I'd gone through to reach this point. Jess, for her part, was completely honest. She admitted again that she had acted out of insecurity and fear of losing our friendship. She said she had been going to therapy and through that process had started to understand how her behavior not only hurt me, but also endangered something she deeply valued, our connection. Her tone was genuine, and for the first time, I felt like she truly grasped the magnitude of what she had done. After a long discussion, we came to an agreement. We both decided that we wanted to try to rebuild our friendship, but with new rules and clear boundaries. We agreed that trust cannot be restored overnight and that we both needed time and patience to work on it. Jess promised to respect my boundaries and, most importantly, to understand that some things are private and not hers to share with anyone, no matter how good her intentions might be. On my end, I agreed to give her a chance to prove that she is committed to change. I also promised myself that I would never again ignore red flags in any relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic partnership. This process has taught me a lot about the importance of boundaries and open communication. At the end of our conversation, I felt relieved. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally felt like we were on the same page. I know this is just the beginning of a long journey, but I'm willing to try. Our friendship won't be the same as before, and it might never be. But I believe that with effort and honesty, we can build something new, maybe even stronger. Ben has also been a great support throughout all of this. When I told him I had decided to talk to Jess, he said he was proud of my bravery in facing the situation. He also promised that we would be more mindful of how we handle dynamics with people outside our relationship moving forward. This experience has helped us grow as a couple, and I'm grateful for that. To everyone who has followed this story with me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can't promise this will be the last update, but for now, I feel like I've found a bit of peace. The future is still uncertain, but I have hope, and that I think is already a big step forward.